Hey guys, and welcome to the Working Money channel. So I saw this from XRP_Canada on Twitter. He tagged me in this tweet and it really stuck with me because although the crypto market isn't doing too much as of today, it's really important to learn from people's experiences, I think, especially when people have come out successfully, to really take away some of the factors that have attributed to their success. Now, guys, this is a story about a guy named Dan Conway who made a killing in the crypto space in 2017. He had no experience with cryptocurrencies, and he took a chance on a little-known cryptocurrency called ethereum. All right, it was at the time ethereum was just emerging, and people had heard about Bitcoin, and so I read this and I thought, boy, there are so many parallels to this story that relate to us XRP holders. And to be honest, in some respects, I feel like us holding XRP is an even better cryptocurrency than Ethereum was at this time for this gentleman. Nevertheless, in a spec market, the market goes crazy and everybody makes money. But I wanted to touch on this because I think a lot of us can learn from these parallels. XRP Canada writes, a lesson to be learned to anyone in crypto when the next bull run commences. Will you be emotionally ready to sell? And at what price points? Make a plan and get ready. So let me read you guys this article. You can sit back, have a listen. Today I'm going to tell you a story of Dan Conway. So how I got sucked into the cryptocurrency craze and walked away with $13 million. So guys, this is a first-hand account of Dan Conway, an ex-middle manager in corporate America who made a fortune betting his life savings on cryptocurrency. And this article was just published last week. So there's a reason he obviously wanted to get the story out there, probably because another bull run is in the works, and we can see it with Bitcoin price, right? Moving up since December. It did move up quite significantly. Anyway, let me read you his story. On a gray morning in May 2016, I left my office in downtown San Francisco and walked to Montgomery Street to Wells Fargo. I swiveled open the two gigantic doors, walked up to the counter, and explained to a teller that I needed to send a money wire to Gemini Trust Company LLC, a cryptocurrency exchange based in New York City. Certainly, she said. How much would you like to be sending today, Mr. Conway? $100,000. My voice sped up as I said $100,000. This represented my family's entire life savings. It was money my wife and I planned to use to pay for our 3 kids' college tuition, our eventual retirement, and the emergency expenses. I was a middle-aged guy with a family who had never been on the cutting edge of anything, but I was about to bet everything I had on an unproven virtual currency called Ethereum. This could only end 2 ways. I'd lose everything I owned or make a fortune. Now, guys, every now and then I'm going to interject with regards to the parallels with us today and XRP. How many of you guys feel this same way? Now, by no means am I telling you to go out and spend your life savings on cryptocurrency. That's not what I'm telling you at all. This is your hard-earned money that you're investing, and you have to feel comfortable investing the right amount for your particular situation. So this is not financial advice. This is just a story from Dan Conway. Restless in corporate America. Up to this point, my professional life was a quiet one of desperation. I was a 45-year-old middle manager at a major multimedia company in San Francisco. Though I earned a respectable $150,000 per year, I hated the fake company culture, the bureaucracy, and the endless chains of command. Like so many others, I was looking for some kind of escape, and soon I found one. Now, first of all, anybody making $150,000 per year, you'd think they'd be pretty well off, but San Francisco obviously got a very high cost of living, and some people might feel like they're just kind of straggling by at $150,000, as ridiculous as that sounds to some of us. Nevertheless, this is Dan wallowing in the misery of corporate America, this photo here taken of him. I'd heard about Bitcoin years earlier when I was preoccupied with climbing the corporate ladder. Back then, it seemed ludicrous to spend real currency that I could hold in my hands on some digital token that existed on a public ledger in the cloud. To be frank, I thought it was complete BS. But that morning, I had a sudden change of heart. Bitcoin, the article read, was going through an especially rough patch. Its price, which was in a constant state of volatility, had fallen from a high of 1.2K in 2013 to $300. My mind raced. What if it goes up again? What if I put everything I had into this? Could I get rich and never work another day in corporate America? A part of me recognized these thoughts as destructive mania. My addictive personality had landed me in trouble before, first with alcohol and then later with harder drugs. My 12-step sponsor wasn't going to pat me on the back and say, "Go buy that Bitcoin, Dan. Sounds like a fantastic plan." At the same time, my wife Eileen and I were raising 3 children and had a big mortgage on our home in the Bay Area. The Great Recession had snatched away most of Eileen's PR consulting clients. We were privileged, of course, but money was tighter than usual. Sitting in my empty office, I began to go down the crypto rabbit hole, and the more I learned, the more I was pulled in. Sound familiar, folks? I'm sure we've all had those crypto rabbit hole moments at some point or another. So then he goes on, Ethereum or bust. Through my early research, I gravitated from Bitcoin to Ethereum, a then newly launched coin that debuted in July 2015. Blockchain, the technology underlying Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies, promised to one day decentralize corporations. As TechCrunch wrote, it would offer the stability of an organization but without the hierarchy. It seemed almost too good to be true, but a lot of smart, future-forward people were getting behind it. As a disenfranchised suit and tie, I was enraptured by the possibility of a decentralized future. As a greedy speculative investor, it gave me a rush. And I'm sure some of that sounds familiar to you guys as well. In short order, I developed an Ethereum obsession. I listened to Ethereum podcasts while walking the dog. I read about Ethereum during every spare minute I had at work. I rejiggered my Twitter feed to follow mostly Ethereum-related accounts. I absorbed hours of Ethereum commentary on YouTube. Again, sound familiar, folks? That seriously sounds like my day-to-day life. My biggest source of conviction was Ethereum's developers. In the 90s, I'd worked in PR at Macromedia. The company's product Flash had dominated the web graphics market after catching the attention of the most forward-thinking web designers. In the same sense, the smartest developers were now flocking to Ethereum. And I see a parallel with that as well, right? We have Ripple, the team, working behind the scenes, not only developing the cryptocurrency XRP, but we are seeing it go one step further. We're seeing them develop the ecosystem in which XRP can be utilized. Let me remind you guys, Brad Garlinghouse keeps saying, the most valuable cryptocurrencies in the future will be the ones that have the most use cases. Occasionally, my Ethereum fever broke and I wondered if I'd gone off the deep end. I was growing desire to invest in Ethereum, a desperate attempt by a desperate man to find some kind of midlife salvation. Was this whole thing some kind of elaborate ruse to scam people like me out of their nest egg? Most of my friends in tech, folks working at places like Google, Apple, and Uber, were dismissive of blockchain. Okay, so guys, this was back in 2015. Google, Apple, Uber employees dismissive of blockchain, and now look where we're at. We have Google investing in Ripple, rumblings of Apple Pay using Ripple technology as well, and I have a feeling that Uber is ready and set to go once cryptocurrency regulations come to pass, but that's just my 2 cents as a sidebar. Few of them had heard of Ethereum. When I told a buddy of mine that I was considering investing in cryptocurrency, he broke out in laughter as if I'd admitted I was hedging my future on Smurf berries or Scooby snacks. But my mind was made. I was going to put everything I had into this. So then he goes, I'm all in. Less than a year later, I found myself standing at a Wells Fargo desk transferring our life savings to that Gemini exchange, 6,993 Ethereum at an average price of $14. Aline had been rightfully resistant to the idea. Eventually, though, she agreed to a deal. I could make the transfer, but I had to promise my children that I'd take them on a number of expensive trips. And then, guys, here's an exchange artist rendering from Dan and his wife. Here's the deal. You can invest the money how you choose if you agree to take the following family trips over the next 18 months. And then she goes on to list a bunch of trips. And then Dan writes deal. After watching me go through years of addiction issues, depression, and corporate misery, Aline was happy to see me excited about something, even if it was some virtual coin. Never for a moment did she think we'd get rich off of it, but she didn't want to break the spell I was under. Now that's a good wife, I gotta say. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before I experienced the earth-shaking volatility of the crypto market. And here we go, folks, the roller coaster ride begins. In June 2016, a high-visibility project was hacked and Ethereum tanked. By December, our original $100,000 investment was worth less than $40,000. Now, I'm sure for some of you guys, that sounds familiar as well. Getting into XRP in 2018, maybe at prices above $1, maybe close to the 90, 80, 70 cent range. Now we've been hovering in and around that 30 cent, 25 to 30 cent mark for quite a while. And so Dan goes through step by step the ups and the downs and what he continued doing. So we got to remember this when we're holding cryptocurrency. Though I was 60,000 in the hole, my confidence in Ethereum was stronger than ever. Sound familiar? And it was now at a bargain basement level price. So I decided to double down. Sound familiar? Anyway, we didn't have the cash. The only pool of funds available was the line of credit on our home. Racking up a big debt on our home equity line would very likely set us up for an unhappy ending. Now, guys, this is actually something I don't agree with. I would never put money into a speculative investment that I could not afford to lose. Taking off from your line of credit, high interest debt, right? That's super, super risky, so I don't actually condone this, but Dan's story still is very interesting nonetheless. Risky, he got very lucky, so let me continue, but I felt in my bones that this was my shot and I might not get another one. In December of 2016, I visited Wells Fargo 3 times, transferring an increasing amount of money from our home equity line to Gemini. After each transfer, I went home and bought Ethereum slowly so I didn't cause a run-up. The order books were thin with limited liquidity in those days. A rush of sales could cause the other traders and their bots to snatch up all the available coins. It was a different time for crypto. That winter, I borrowed $200,000 on my home and used it to buy more Ethereum. I now own 26,750 ETH total at an average buy-in of $11.21 a coin. And I was $300,000 in the hole. Now, I'm sure for a lot of you guys that sounds familiar with your purchasing experiences with cryptocurrency, but don't worry, the story gets better. On the rise, in February 2017, during our first negotiated trip of a lifetime in Mexico, Ethereum came back to life. It was the middle of the night and I was in the back of a cab battling a nasty bout of food poisoning. I was puking my guts out, foaming at the mouth and delirious, but I didn't care because our Ethereum was up 50K. We were in the black for the first time. Then something miraculous happened. It kept going up and up and up. Between February and March 2017, Ethereum shot from $15 to $50 per coin. By April, it was at $70, and by May, $230. In a span of 4 months, my $300,000 investment ballooned to $6 million. And it shows a price chart here with Dan's buy-in prices. Guys, I'll link this article in the description if you want to look at the chart further. I'm just going to keep reading, though. I'd seen a story at some point about someone who had spontaneous orgasms at random times throughout the day. That's the best way I could describe the feeling. When I checked my phone, I'd be up another 6 figures since the last time I looked. I couldn't resist stopping whatever I was doing to pump my fist and shout yes. But other times Ethereum would dip and the value of my stack would plummet by more than $1 million in less than an hour. The orgasms were replaced by brutal withdrawals. The volatility was a narcotic, shooting up my brain with boosts of dopamine and serotonin. The coins consumed me and changed my entire persona. Sound familiar, folks? You can't let this kind of thing get away from you, although it is difficult to refocus your mind on something else when you are so invested. When Ethereum stopped going up or had a mild dip, I'd get snappy with the kids. I donned a hoodie and stared into the void for hours, my mind enslaved to the promise of Ethereum and its price variations. I was fired from my job of 6 years. So this is rock bottom for him. In the midst of a particularly volatile week, I found myself in the emergency room, struggling to breathe. The doctor diagnosed me with a panic event. Is anything making you anxious, he asked. There was also the constant looming fear that my crypto account would be hacked at any moment. In 2017 alone, hundreds of millions of dollars in crypto were stolen from accounts. That's why you put it on a ledger. And there wasn't any regulatory body to protect victims. From June to October of 2017, Ethereum floated between 200 and 400 per coin, an increase of 2,000% since the beginning of the year. That summer, many of the early hodlers, the folks who were holding for the long term, began to cash out. My coins were now worth millions, but I continued to hold the majority of them. This decision would soon pay off in a bigger way than I could ever imagine. And guys, this is the point where you really kind of have to look at your stash and reevaluate. If your coins are worth millions, I think it was DM Logic that said once, what is life-changing money to you? If it's millions, then maybe you should start cashing out some. If it's hundreds of thousands, then maybe you should start cashing out some. If it's tens of thousands, then maybe you should start cashing out some. Everybody is different. There is no right or wrong answer for this. But one thing is for sure, once you see life-changing money, don't get greedy. The sell, in the course of 2 weeks in December 2017, Ethereum nearly doubled in price from $430 to $830. On January 3rd, 2018, it hit $900. 3 days later, it passed $1,000. It was an unprecedented burst, so monumental in scope that it temporarily froze the exchanges. It was like a 9.0 earthquake with an infinite number of aftershocks. In the midst of the madness, I received an email from my financial advisor, who'd I'd hired months before to oversee my growing funds. And essentially, he posts the letter here and it reads, with Ethereum up so much in the last day, have you entered a limit order to sell at $900? And guys, when your financial advisor is suggesting this, your best bet is likely to listen. You know, not a lot of us have financial advisors. Some of us do, some of us don't, depending on your circumstance. But when things are looking too good to be true, chances are we're kind of at that point where they are Also remember one thing, you will never be able to sell at all-time high and buy at all-time low. It's just unrealistic. So he goes on to say the alarm bells were sounding. Sitting on my couch in sweaty workout clothes, I turned to my favorite subreddit. The message board was full on mayhem with 1.4 thousand comments that morning alone. Grandparents, taxi drivers, anyone who had gotten a hot tip was buying cryptocurrency, even hardcore hodlers like me. It was too much too fast. I frantically logged into my Gemini account and weighed my options. If I didn't sell and Ethereum tanked, I'd lose it all. I'd have to tell Eileen and the kids that Dad had dropped the golden goose egg, that I'd squandered my lottery ticket. Watching the greedy masses pile into Ethereum reminded me of the famous battle scene from Braveheart. While the hordes rush forward in full sprint, lances a tilt, the defenders sit still, unflinching and calm, waiting for the signal to attack. I watched the price climb to $915, then over the course of 2 hours I sold 11,000 Ethereum, the majority of my remaining stack, for $10 million. I sent Aline a text saying, "We are done." So he sold 11,000 Ethereum, guys. Obviously, he was still holding more. This next section is called Life After Crypto. Shortly after we cashed out, the cryptocurrency market took a dive. Ethereum dropped from a high of $13.96 to $385. I'm assuming that's when he took out his last 3 million, because had he just cashed out everything, he would have been up 20 million. And guys, this is the point, right? You have to have a plan. You know, for him, it was about 50%, near $915 to realize $10 million in gains. And then I'm sure he sold the remaining amount to finalize $13 million in gains. Now, he could have cashed out everything and made roughly $20 million. But guys, hindsight is 20/20, and this is why a plan is important for your crypto exit. Whether you're looking at 15% at the next all-time high and then another 35% after that and holding the remaining indefinitely, or, you know, if you want to cash out 50% at the next all-time high and then hold the remaining 50% indefinitely, everybody is different. There is no right or wrong way to do this. It all has to do with life-changing money. What is life-changing to you? The important thing, though, guys, is to have a plan and to exit when you think you've seen life-changing money on the table. I know there are a lot of stories like this that have gone the other way, where people have just lost millions of dollars because they waited too long. One of the hardest things too is not only to have a plan, but to stick to the plan. Some people keep seeing it rise and rise and rise, and then they're like, oh, well, it's going higher, I'm gonna completely ditch my plan altogether, and the next thing you know, the crypto you're holding plummets to the ground. So guys, I hope this story entertained you. I hope you could see some of the parallels with his situation and our situation holding XRP. The only difference is I feel like we're in a better spot because XRP has so much more going for it today than Ethereum did in 2015. I think if we're patient, we could see ourselves in a similar situation to Dan Conway. Anyways, that's just my opinion, but I want to hear what you guys think. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video if you like the content I'm providing. I always love hearing your comments. See you in the next one, guys.